think religions are just popular cults.
I believe that there are God knows how many positive tenets within the Bible. It's been largely a lot of what our society has been based on when it came to the forming of our laws.
I don't see what we gain by having a charitable organization, right, that is also spreading this belief system that causes bigotry, that causes hate.
So you can't sit here and say that Christianity was pro-slavery when the vast majority of the abolitionist movement was Christian.
So far as I'm aware, lying is a sin in your cult. So you probably shouldn't do that. Oh god, where do I start? I think that like so to be clear, I don't think religion is like always bad. I think that religion can be a useful way to teach people to do good things, right? To not to kill people, not to steal, not to rape. Obviously, we don't want people doing those things in religion. It can be a really easy way to teach people not to do those things, because there's a consequence. If you do it, this God is going to get angry and you'll be punished at some point. But I think all these benefits can come from like a secular source, right? We can teach people why they shouldn't kill people, why they shouldn't rape, why they shouldn't hurt people. And so that even that positive is something that can come from another source, and there are just a ton of negatives that come along with religion. I mean, children are born and they're like indoctrinated. I'd call it indoctrination, cult indoctrination, into a belief system that teaches them like bigotry. It teaches them to fear their own sexual orientation. It teaches them like hatred and distrust of other children who've been indoctrinated into other religions, the wrong religions, I guess. They're taught to dehumanize people they've never met. They know nothing about other than like they're worshiping the wrong like ghost thing, right? I guess we can start out with that, right? I just think that every positive effect we find in religion, giving people some kind of like drive to get up in the morning because they think there's someone looking over them or whatever the fuck. I think this is just like magical thinking. People would be better off just going to fucking therapy if they need it, maybe doing some meditation, and religious beliefs just inherently, because it's this God or another God, and if you don't follow this God, you might be punished, you might be misguided, and you might be a heretic or a heathen or an agent of the fucking devil. There's just so much that comes along, so much baggage that comes along with this indoctrination. I just think we would all be better off without it.
Okay. All right. Fanatiq.
Okay. So I think religion, like anything else, it just depends on how you look at it, right? It's all a matter of perspective. And I find that people tend to really give into whatever their biases are when it comes to religion. So you'll recognize, if you look at, you can judge religion for the good it does or the bad that it does. But if you're a person that happens to be particularly I don't know, I guess predisposed against religion, then you'll probably like ignore all the good that it's done historically and then focus on the bad. I don't think religion is necessarily bad, and I don't think that that it necessarily teaches you to hate everyone. I mean, I think we have all sorts of statistics and numbers that demonstrate very regularly like how often Christianity has been like the proponent of so many really good things, specifically Protestant Christianity, which is typically the place that I argue for. I think the Roman Catholic Church is an entirely different organization that does entirely different things, but we recognize the Quaker movement was like largely Protestant. Hospitals, they were largely Protestant. They were Protestant Christianity. That's where we got our idea for hospitals from. Food banks, all of the various good things in the New Testament, specifically with the onset of Jesus, that like demonstrate how we could be better people. I think it's very beneficial, and I think the notion that like these things can be taught from a secular perspective, I think that's accurate. Sure, I think we can try our best, but I think we've recognized that very often when people don't have this idea that there's like a big brother kind of watching, humanity just doesn't tend to do well with that. You have like super duper prominent like people like Richard Dawkins, who like point blank like is an outspoken atheist. His book that made him famous in the philosophy area was The God Delusion illusion. But even he argues in favor of Christianity, I'm in favor of religion, recognizing that people won't do right when they don't feel like there's someone watching them. And so I think religion is particularly beneficial, on top of the fact that I think it's true. But obviously I'm a Christian, so I obviously believe in the Christian God and the truth of the Bible. So for me, the idea that we would just do away with it is just completely, I can't see that.
Now, I think that you're semi-right. I think that there religion, like I said earlier, can be a useful thing for teaching people to do good, right? But in all those examples that you just gave, the Quaker movement, on the other side of the Quaker movement were Southern Christians using Christianity to justify slavery. I think the president of the Confederacy said that slavery was instituted by God, right? And he's not entirely wrong, because I'm not going to go into biblical scripture with you, but there are verses in the Bible that can be used to justify slavery, just like in the Quran. Plenty of things in the Quran that can be used to justify slavery, in the Hadiths, and I'm sure if we look at other religions, right, there are verses in those religions too that also justify slavery, right? So, yes, some good has come from religion, religious beliefs, religious people who have interpreted their religion in such a way that it led them to do to fight against slavery, or to fight for the rights of African Americans, like liberation theology, and like Martin Luther King. The churches were a massive part of the civil rights movement, right? So I agree that it's not always, it hasn't always been a bad thing, right? There are some situations where having a God there, having some driving force other than just some kind of philosophical position has been beneficial, right? But I think that we're at a point now where we can start moving away from that, and I think that it'd be preferential for us to start moving away from that, to stop teaching children that, hey, if you lie, you're going to go to hell. If you kill someone, that's a sin, you're going to go to hell. And instead start telling them why they shouldn't kill people, why they shouldn't. Give them reasons other than God's going to be mad at you for doing these things. We can teach people that, hey, if you live in a society, you probably don't want homeless people starving on the street, right? So we should have food banks. We should have charity. We should do good for our neighbors, because, in fact, if our neighbors are doing well, the health of the community is better overall, and that makes it better to live in. That makes it better for us, right? We can find other reasons. So I just don't buy that people need some kind of God. They need some kind of the devil on their shoulder scaring them into behaving properly. I think there's plenty of examples. In fact, in secular societies, or societies that kind of put religion on the back burner, you start to see progress, right, in women's rights, gay rights, just overall human rights. I can point to Saudi Arabia. The reason women are starting to get, starting to see some progress there in terms of their rights, is because, I wouldn't call it a secular society, but in some ways, their religion is starting to be put on the back burner as they develop it.
I don't know that but most of what you said there I kind of disagree with, right? While I can recognize that there are people that will claim that the beliefs and whatever, they can try to use it to do really horrible things, I don't think that you can necessarily attribute those things to the thing that they're claiming, right? In other words, if I decide to say, oh, God gave me permission to rape a woman, you can't then ascribe that to religion, right? We've had plenty of examples, the guy who ended up bombing that abortion clinic, and when he was evaluated by a psychologist, she said point blank, one, he was definitely schizophrenic, and he had a very unique way of interpreting the Bible to try to justify his beliefs. But if any sane person examining the Bible in and of itself, they could not see anything remotely close to that. Furthermore, I don't think that there's any scriptures in the New Testament of the Bible that justify slavery whatsoever. I mean, that's a book that I honestly read pretty regularly, and I've never seen anything of the sort. Furthermore, I think it's a completely pejorative way that you're referencing the Bible. It's not like like people in the Bible say, oh, you have to do this because God will hate you. That's not why you don't murder a person. The reason why you don't murder a person is because the Bible tells you to love your neighbor as yourself. The Bible also tells you, do unto others as you would that others do unto you, do ye also unto them, which we normally just say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Like, so it's not necessarily just about that. They tell you to love your neighbor as yourself, love your there's so many scriptures that tell you about how you should be treating people, how to love your neighbor, how to do right by other people, how to make sure that to be wary of offending other individuals and be wary of being offended by other people's actions, not to be judgmental of other people so that you don't be judged by the same way that you're judging other people. There's so many scriptures to talk about not offending people and so on and so forth. The idea that you could try to reduce the entire Bible down to just do this so that God's not mad at you, that sounds like someone who's literally either you've never read the Bible or you've never encountered any person actually explaining to you what's in the Bible, because like that's just not there, and that's just not the Bible at all. Like in the New Testament, rather. You want to get into Old Testament stuff, sure, and I that's not something that most Christians follow. Like I don't know of any Christians that practice the law of Moses. So yeah, I think that's really pejorative. I don't think that's an accurate representation of what the Bible is about and what's in there.
Okay, so I think that there are verses in the New Testament, that passages in the New Testament that do justify slavery, that tell slaves to listen to their masters. I don't remember the exact wording.
I know what you're talking about. I don't really want to get into, but that's not that. That's not what that scripture says at all. I
don't really want to get into it because we're just going to disagree about the interpretation, right? And that'll go nowhere. But I think it's interesting that you would say that, because I do think that Christianity, like most religions, kind of boils down to, do this thing, or God will be mad, and if God is mad, you're going to be punished when you die. This is the reason, people mutilate their children all over this planet. Little boys have their foreskins cut off. Little girls have their genitals mutilated, right? To satisfy a pact with some fucking all-powerful ghost, right? And yeah, you can say, oh well, in the Bible it gives us a reason to do this, but it seems to me that and again, I'm not just talking about Christianity, right? I just like just about all organized religions. I think they're all pretty bad. I think magical thinking in general is pretty bad. But to say that it doesn't boil down to, do as you're commanded, submit to God, or there's some kind of punishment, I don't understand how you'd get there, because this is literally built into the religion, right? It's yes, love your neighbor, yes, don't follow the commandments, do these things, but if you don't, built into the religion is a punishment, and this is what people are afraid of. I think this is why people kind of flock to religion, right? Because they're convinced that if they don't do this thing, this all-powerful ghost is going to hurt them. Right? It just seems...
No, but hold on. I didn't say that it's not there. I'm saying that it's incredibly reductive to try to reference that to try to... It's reductive to try to make that what the book is about and what the reason for practicing religion is, right? So, yes, hell is mentioned in the Bible. I think in the New Testament it might be mentioned 3 times, maybe twice. But it's a book, with God knows how many chapters and God knows how many verses, and it's constantly talking about the reason to do good and how beneficial you can be. You have this entire character, Jesus, who did violence to no man, where it's telling you where he's telling you do violence to no man so that you can have life more abundantly, right? There's plenty of scriptures that are simply telling you to do these things in order for your own health's sake, to do things for your own benefit, to do things so that you experience a more plentiful life, to do a more prosperous life. So the idea that you can try to be reductive and mention no, this is all about avoiding hell, when hell is only literally mentioned twice in the entire New Testament. It's not, might not be twice, might be a few more times than that. But again, it's the hyper minority of the scriptures. Hell, there's plenty of people there's even disagreement within religion about whether or not hell even exists. There are plenty of Christian denominations that don't believe that there is a hell. Jews don't believe in a hell, right? So the idea that this is the whole scope of the Bible is just it's a misrepresentation. That's just not accurate.
No, I don't think it's a whole scope of the Bible.
The fact that the idea that it's a major, even a major scope.
Well, I think that if you're told even once that if you don't do this thing, if you don't follow these rules, you're going to be tortured forever. That seems pretty major to me, right? Even if it's mentioned one time. But what I'm a little confused about, right? Maybe not confused. What I'm kind of trying to get at is, if you're acknowledging that there are ways to teach people to do these good things, without religion, right? Without a God, right? Without the punishment, even, right? Why do we need a religion? Why do we need a God? Why is this beneficial to us in one way, in any way? Given that
Sure.
built into these religions, right? In Christianity, for example, you're either a Christian or you are a non-believer, and at best, Christians see you as someone who's misguided, who needs to be taught to submit to God or to follow God, and at worst, you're a heretic, right? Someone who's attempting to lead people to the devil, right? So built into this religion is like the othering of other human beings,
Right.
with no benefit.
No.
If all these positives can be arrived at, just with teaching, with knowledge, with reason, why do we need the rest of that? Like, what benefit do we get from that?
So again, I think, yeah, you're being incredibly reductive and incredibly pejorative, because yes, like any type of belief is going to otherize people, right? We recognize that tribalism is just almost like an innate part of the human condition. So the idea that like you would recognize that if you know the one true God, the idea that you would recognize, that you would believe in your heart of hearts, if this is the one true God and he's saying I'm the one true God and other people are saying they're the one true God, the fact that you would look at them as not like as wrong, sure, that's I mean, so you think that they're wrong, but like that doesn't mean that you have to dehumanize the people. It doesn't mean that you have to that doesn't mean that you treat them unfairly. In fact, there are plenty of scriptures that talk about loving your enemies, right? So like that, just because we recognize that there's going to be a distinction, and yes, there might be some form of tribalism, it's not necessarily harmful. We recognize even in like in simple theories like philosophy, right, or even logic, right, where we have like disagreements about, there was a long-term disagreement about whether or not the sun rising in the east and setting in the west was inductive or deductive logic. Like, we disagreed. We had really huge disagreements on that. Like, there were plenty of schools in one way and plenty of schools in another way. But it doesn't mean that you have to like harm the other people or whatever. You're speaking of this incredibly pejoratively, which I think is inaccurate. Do I think that other people that don't believe in the God that I believe in, do I think that they're correct? No, I obviously have my reasons for why I believe in the God that I do. But it doesn't mean that I treat atheists or non-believers any worse than I would treat any other person. Like, and so the idea that religion is causing this harm, that would be people misusing and people abusing it. But we can recognize that what you're doing there, it would be the same as me looking at any secular state and looking at any of the harms that come from a secular state and then ascribing that towards the state itself, as opposed to the individuals misusing, misrepresenting, whatever it is. And I think that's just inaccurate. Again, I think it's incredibly reductive. It's completely ignorant of what's in the Bible.
Okay, so again, you have me a little bit confused because you just acknowledged that like religion could lead to like tribalism, the othering of other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're like equating this with like national borders, but
No.
I think this is, yeah. I mean, you're saying that, hey,
I just said
if you have,
tribalism. Just tribalism of all
right?
kinds.
Okay.
You can do that
Of
through
all
race.
kinds,
You can
right,
do that
but-
through
but I think-
politics. You can do that through logic. You can do
Yeah.
that. Like, there's so many different philosophies.
Sure.
You have deontologists versus utilitarians. Like, there's so many different ways that we can become tribalistic. You can do that through last names. You can do that through sexes, right? Right? Like, there's
Okay.
so many different ways of
I
dividing tribalism.
totally understand.
But what the
I
point that I'm
totally get
making
it.
is that you can't. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah. So, why is this thing that you've just acknowledged breeds tribalism, right? Breeds like an us and them mentality, where some people are getting to heaven, some people are not. Some people are servants of God. Other people are servants of the devil, maybe for trying to lead people away from God. Why is this thing not negative? Why is it not negative? Like, why is tribalism itself, right? This division that this religion creates. Why isn't this something that we should seek to do away with?
Well, because I'm never going to look at. I'm not going to ever try to say that because something has the potential to be harmful, that therefore we should completely avoid it, right? I don't believe in that, and I think that can be incredibly harmful, right? Like, taking that logic, that line of reasoning can say, well, you know what? since we recognize now how harmful like sex education can be for some individuals, if we start educating them about what sex is and make them curious about it, then they will be having sex prematurely. So maybe we should just completely avoid it, right? Like, I don't believe in just teaching abstinence specifically because of a potential harm, especially when you have and you can recognize so many potential goods. Like, again, there are very few things on this planet that can't cause tribalism. So the idea that we would abstain from something just because it has a potential for creating some forms of tribalism just sounds ridiculous. Should we abolish last names so that way we can avoid tribalism associated with people's names, like so that we don't have family? Do we ignore race just so that we can be more unified, and then that way people won't be tribalistic regarding race? Like, no, that doesn't sound right. What it sounds like is what you teach people to actually follow what's in the New Testament, which talks about loving your neighbors and recognizing that everyone's not going to be the same, and that we're not supposed to judge other people for the way that they believe, and that each person will work out their own salvation with fear and trembling. A servant will fall and stand in his own master's eyes, and to recognize that, like, it's not about it's not about creating an us and them. It's about recognizing that you're following God the way that you know how to, and to live to all that you know and to understand, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Again, you're focusing on a pejorative and misconstruing what's in the Bible in order to try to justify some form of irrational abstention based on something that happens to be an innate human quality. It just sounds ridiculous.
No, I think that the issue here is you're focusing on, you're saying that I'm focusing on the negatives, right? The pejorative things about religion. When it seems like you're focusing on like your specific version of this cult, right? And your specific version thinks people should be treated with respect, and they should be and they should be, allowed to believe the way they believe, and to love who they love, and all these things. But that's not the reality. The reality that we all exist in. We live in a reality where, in this country, in this not just in this country, this fucking planet, Christianity is used to justify awful, disgusting things, right? Like I mentioned earlier, the mutilation of children, right, in the U.S., right, but also in other countries, in Africa these days, in fucking Europe, right, children are mutilated just after birth to satisfy this pact with some kind of god, right? Slavery is still being justified today with religion. In the United States, we just got like a fucking gay marriage like less than 10 years ago, because religious people who you say are loving and believe that people should be treated with respect sit on the other side of that argument. And so these people don't get to get married because God said so, right? Because God said that this is an abomination. Because God said marriage is between one man and woman, because it's not Adam and Steve, it's Adam and Eve. And they actively work within our country to strip rights from people, to deny rights to people. Today, they're working to deny women abortion rights in this country, right? Because their God believes that these are like children, and fetuses are alive, and they're babies, so you can't kill them. So fuck the rights of these women. We're gonna force them to have these unwanted children. So I don't know. It feels like, I don't know what your specific sect of this cult is. It's all lovey-dovey, hug everybody. Everybody should be treated with respect. But that's not the majority here, right? It's not even close to the majority. Maybe your specific version of this cult is beneficial to you, though I would still argue that, hey, you believing that, like, so word I'm looking for, that some people are going to heaven, some people might not go to heaven because they don't worship God, because they're not submitting to the spirit thing. That still seems pretty negative to me. That's how you probably look down on non-religious people, or you see yourself as better than them because you're submitting to the spirit thing. And I just don't understand, right? So if you've already admitted that all these benefits, right, charity, morality, right, can be taught through like non-religious means, what the fuck do we need this weird ass magical belief system for? Like, what do we need this for? Like, what benefit do we get from this at all?
Okay, so the first thing that you mentioned about circumcision, right? Like, first off, I think you're also being pretty pejorative intentionally, right? Like.
Yeah, I think religion is pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Right. I get you. But the very thing that you're accusing Christians of constantly doing, you're doing to me. So like,
wait, I'm not taking away your
hold on. No. Wait, that's not
Okay,
all
go
that.
for it.
That's not all that you said, buddy. What you also mentioned was you said that Christians look down on other people that think differently than so on and so forth. You're looking down on me for being a Christian, right? You're making an assumption that I
No.
look down. Hold on, you're making an assumption that I look down on you for being a Christian, which I don't. That's not the way I look at things. I recognize I was raised in a very Christian home, like to like pretty hyper conservative Christian parents, where the Bible was taught to me. I was literally born at the pastor's house of the cult that I was raised in. So like Christianity was pretty inextricably tied to my life. It really shaped very much a large portion of it. And some of those things were harmful because of the cult that I was a part of. But I maybe when I was in that cult, then yeah, I might have looked down on people. But as you grow and you mature and you get older, you start to recognize, as I think most people do, that yeah, like there are different, like people have different reasonings, and I recognize that, man, I'm a pretty blessed person in the sense that I got a chance to recognize, I got a chance to learn the Bible. I got to witness so many freaking miracles that like literally shaped my worldview, because I had a very faith-filled mother, and so like it's not that I look down on other people, because I don't. I recognize that if other people had my experiences, they would believe. A lot of time, I don't. Looking down at someone would be like, I feel like it would be like there's some sort of derision or some sort of way that I feel some sort of awe against people that don't. I don't. I hope that people find like the truth. I hope that people come to know God. I hope that people can see the miracles that I've seen and or their own miracles, and that they can come to know God for who He is, because I think He's truly a blessing. I think He very much benefits your life. I think so like it's not a matter of looking down on people. Furthermore, another thing that because you made a bunch of points. You mentioned you mentioned circumcision, and like it's almost like you're making it sound as if like circumcision is exclusive to Christianity, when it's not. It's not exclusive to religion. There are plenty of secular people, atheists alike, who still believe in circumcision. There's plenty of doctors who advocate for circumcision for cleanliness and so on and so forth. Certain less likely to get infections, less likely for HIV transmissions, and so on and so forth. So there's all of these other benefits associated with circumcision that make people practice it. It's not just religion. That's one. And yeah, and it's not. You're saying that it's like me having some specific particular belief in whatever. And I there are very few. I think that it would be the hyper minority of Protestant Christians who wouldn't be believing the exact same thing. These are like some of the basic core tenets of Christianity: to love your neighbor as yourself, and to do unto others what you'd have them do unto you. These are very core tenets. This isn't something particular or specific that I'm practicing or that I believe. These are like literal core tenets of Christianity that pretty much go throughout. So I think you're just being pejorative.
I don't think I am. I think that you're minimizing the like activist arm of like Christianity in the United States, right? The arm that today is working to restrict abortion rights in the United States. That
But is that necessarily religious? Because you recognize
yes.
there are no atheists that believe in abortion? So there are no atheists that believe in...
That's ridiculous.
So it's not necessarily religious.
So wait, hold on. So to say that the abortion activists in this country, right, pro-lifers, aren't primarily religious is fucking ridiculous. I get maybe there are some atheists out there who are pro-life, possibly, but I would say they're a tiny minority of the movement. Right? Maybe there are atheists out there who believe that gay marriage shouldn't have been a thing, that gay people shouldn't let be married. But that was a tiny minority of that movement. And the influence and the power that these movements have comes from the religious part of the movement, comes from the fucking hooks that religious institutions in this country have in our government, at the local level and at the federal level. Right? So for you to compare me telling you that I think your religion is bad to like the observable harm or demonstrable harm that these movements within our country are doing to people today, right? Teaching children that their own sexuality, right, is wrong, and that they're abominations for feeling the way they do, and if they were to go out and have sex with another man, that they'd be offending God in some way. For you to compare that to me telling you that, yeah, maybe I do look down on you, not just for believing in your religion, but for fucking spreading it, right? Just for being an intelligent person, because I do think you're an intelligent person, and not taking the next step to, why God, right? And then beyond that, not taking instead you're turning down a separate path, right, which is advocating for more children to be indoctrinated into this cult like you were, by your family. Just seems like I don't understand, right, how you could be this intelligent and this stupid all at once, right? Why you would how you could see that these things, right, the benefits of this that come from this book, right, can come from somewhere else, and it seems like you're saying that the things that couldn't come from somewhere else are like a what, miracles? You think you've seen miracles?
Sure.
um uh I'm sorry for laughing. It's just I don't know what to say to that.
It's okay.
So you think you've seen
will
miracles?
ignore
I
your
guess
delusion.
you feel really good in the morning when you wake up and you feel like God's watching over to you. I
That wouldn't be a miracle.
that's
No.
weird ass magical thinking. I don't think benefits the country at all. I
But
think this is
but
a
that's
bad
a
thing.
straw man. That's not what I said. That wouldn't be a miracle. Number one. Number two, I wanted to point out something to you. So let's look at the statistics, right? So if we just want to start talking about views about abortion based on religion, right? So we find out that obviously. What is this? I'm sorry. 60% of mainline Protestants believe that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. 55% of Muslims in this country believe that abortion should be illegal in all or most cases. 53% of Orthodox Christians. 83% of Jews. 52% of historically black Protestants. Obviously, 68% of Hindus. 82% of Buddhists. 48%. Very small minority of Catholics believe. Like marginal minority believe that it should be legal in most cases, and get this, the other 5% of them don't even know. So you can't even say that the majority of Catholics believe that abortion should be illegal in all or most cases. So again, this idea that it's like only Christians and that this is like this is necessarily a belief of Christianity, when we recognize that the majority of Christians believe that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. I can link you this if you need to. Actually, I'll link it to you just so you can look it over. I think it'll probably have a more profound effect. The vast majority of Christians believe that that abortion should be legal. So now you're applying this nefarious position that most Christians don't even hold. That's why I keep saying that you're being pejorative. You got to see that, right?
I think that we're like what you're doing there is like equivocating like Sunday Christians. Was that you? Sunday Christians who would call themselves Christians, were culturally Christians, people who were like culturally Jews, culturally Muslims, with like people that I'd consider religious, right? Who are people that go to church every Sunday, but also read the Bible.
So you're
Right?
going to know
It
true
seems like
Scotsman now. That's what
no,
you're doing.
I think no, I'm not. I think you're doing a no true Scotsman fallacy.
Wait, no. This is the
No,
poll.
I'd like to finish.
Click the link.
I'd like to finish the statement.
Okay, click the
So
link.
I think that like what you're seeing there, right? And we can track those trends over time, right? How 50 years ago those numbers would have looked a lot different, right? Even amongst Christian people. And I think that what we're seeing there isn't like the softening of religion; it's the softening of this religious label, right? And yes, it's true that like your version of Christianity, I guess, some types of Christianity have become like modernized, quote unquote. I think that the Pope is even saying that that gay people aren't going to hell and shit like that. But this seems just to me like a cult attempting to keep up with the times, to stay relevant, because it was losing members, right? And again, given that these beliefs, right, whether or not they're like, again, there are non-religious people out there who believe that gay marriage shouldn't be a thing. There are non-religious people out there who believe that abortion shouldn't be a thing, right? But having like a religion there sticks God on the other side of that argument, right? So God is on your side, right? So you are like objectively correct, right? And the other side is objectively wrong because there is a God on your side, right, to tell you that. So this isn't a philosophical disagreement. This is literally heaven on your side and hell on the other side, right? And again, I don't see how like any benefit, right, here comes from like the inclusion of religion. If there's some kind of philosophical disagreement about whether or not fetuses are living or dead, or whether or not they're babies or like a clump of cells or whatever the fuck, or whether or not gay people should be allowed to be married, right? Those it's fine to have those philosophical disagreements, and people can disagree about these things, but there's no benefit that comes from having God inserted into this, right? From having one side claiming that the creator of the universe is objectively on their side. So I just think we'd be better off if people weren't inserting God into these things, if there were no God to insert into these things at all, if people were just having these disagreements as human beings, talking about moral systems and coming to like conclusions. Like I don't see how we benefit from having God here at all.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It seems like this conversation is absolutely absurd to me. Number one, look at the statistics, please, while I'm talking, so you can see the numbers here. It's no true Scotsman when you say, this is what Christians believe, and then we have Pew Research that identifies what Christians actually believe, and you say, those aren't real Christians, because real Christians believe the way that I'm saying that they do. That's no true Scotsman. That's number one. Number two, like, it seems like the entire crux of your entire argument is one of the most harmful things about Christianity. I mean, Christianity is so harmful for society because they believe that other people are wrong. It's like, what? So then I guess then you could use that same argument to say, well, okay, well, we shouldn't really have politics, or we shouldn't have a two-party system or a party system at all, because it promotes tribalism and makes you think that other people who believe on the other way are wrong. And that's not enough. That's not enough. You can't go dismissing an entire way of belief that's been so insanely largely beneficial to this country, largely beneficial to my life personally, largely beneficial to a lot of people, the reason why they practice it, and say, no, we should dismiss the entire thing because they think that other people are wrong sometimes. Like, this is absurd, man. Come on.
No, that's bullshit.
That's what you're saying.
So it's not just that they're wrong. It's that they're wrong, and because they're wrong, they're acting against God. They're acting against the creator of the universe.
Thank you so freaking much,
that's pushing the button. And because they're acting against the creator of the universe, they're therefore like enemies of the fucking devil, right? That's where this goes. It's not as simple as it's just a disagreement. People are wrong sometimes. No big deal. It is not that when you're dealing with religion. You're dealing with people who believe that because the other side is wrong, and then who'll make the argument that because, like for example, we're allowing gay marriage, God is going to punish this country. When Katrina happened, that was God's punishment for gay marriage. When fucking when the hurricanes happened, right, and there was a massive earthquake in Japan, that was God's punishment for the fucking wickedness in the United States and the planet. When Africa, where there's like an HIV epidemic, where they can go over there and say, oh, you shouldn't have condoms because that could actually make it worse, right? Because this would encourage premarital sex, right? And this leads to more people getting AIDS and HIV, right? So it's not just a disagreement, right? It's a disagreement where one side is claiming that the creator of the fucking universe is on their side. Right? If we were to take that out, right? If we were to suck the creative universe out of the equation there, we could just have the disagreement, just like you're saying, with two people, with sets of facts, so they can argue with each other and they come to some kind of truth, right? So it's not as simple as you're making it out to be. It's not as innocent as you're making it out to be. You're claiming that the creator of the universe is on your side. So whenever we're having these discussions, right, it's not just you and I disagreeing. It's myself and fucking God disagreeing, right? Because you believe that you're espousing the position of God, right? This is like, I don't understand how you can't see this is far more extreme than you're making it out to be.
Okay, in this conversation thus far, right, explain to me what have been the negative ramifications from me holding on to the belief that God is real and that God is on my side. Because in order for you to because you keep asserting that, and I keep trying to figure out, how is that any bigger, right? Explain to me what the distinction is, because all I'm saying is, I believe I'm right and you're wrong, which of course there's plenty of things that I would believe I'm right about and think that you're wrong about. This just happens to be, I believe that I'm right and that God exists, and I believe that you're wrong in thinking that he doesn't. But again, explain to me how this is bigger than that. How am I simplifying or being reductive? Because it sounds like literally that's the entirety of the argument, and I don't understand why that's so incredibly harmful. What am I doing that's harming you by holding on to this belief?
Maybe we can demonstrate it. I mean, do you believe that gay people should be allowed to be married
Sure.
in a church?
Sure. If the church wants to marry them, sure.
Oh, okay. So this is what I'm talking about. I think that like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, most people wouldn't have said that, which is why we had the massive fight in this country against gay marriage, right? We had the Christian denominations, Christian sects of this cult all over this fucking country. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Arming themselves with propaganda, arming politicians with money, right, to fight against gay marriage, because if it were to happen, this would be an affront to God, right? And again, maybe your specific sect, your specific cult is different, right? Maybe it's always been that way. I don't know what specific cult you happen to hold to, but I think that like ignoring.
So hold on, wait. Let me stop you really quick.
Oh God.
Do you not think there's a difference between a religion and a cult? Like they're literally different words. They're literally different words with total.
Yeah, I know the
here,
difference.
it's okay. Okay, so here,
what's the difference?
Here, let's look it up. Let's look up. Okay, so a cult by definition, right? So you can just stop doing that because you're being intentionally pejorative, and it's absolutely you're literally attempting to insult me here, and it's unnecessary because I haven't done the same to you in this conversation, right? So definition 1: a religion regarded as unorthodox or spurious. Christianity is the largest religion in the world, so we can just go ahead and get past that one, okay? A great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work, such as film or book.
Okay.
Okay, so part 2, I could see how that could be whatever, but obviously with context, this is not something that's unorthodox or spurious.
I think religions are just popular cults. Right. If you have a popular cult, it graduates to being called a religion. That's what religion.
It's fine. Actually, I'm not going to ask you to be honest in that way. It's okay. Go ahead.
Hold on. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm wrong.
Well, because obviously
you just brought
because
up
the distinction
tell me how they're different.
Because the distinction is unorthodox.
Wait, hold on. What was that?
The distinction is unorthodox, and you recognize
what does unorthodox mean?
Unorthodox would mean that something that is something outside of the norm. When we recognize that Christianity is the largest religion in the world, but here I can look it up for you. So I don't want to give.
So when I say that Christianity, that religion is a popular cult, and you're telling me that a religion is a belief system that's been that's orthodox, that's been like normalized or is widely accepted. How is that any different from me saying that cults are just popular religions? I'm sorry, religions are just popular cults.
Because if the definition includes it, then you're begging the question. But I don't really want to go down the argument of semantics because I don't expect you to be honest. Because if something says unorthodox, no, wait, let me finish. Let me explain it. Okay, here. Let me explain to you. Really quickly. For example, if a word, for example, a definition of something happens to be something that means abnormal, right? Here's a perfect example. The word queer. The word queer inherently means something outside of the norm, something outside of what is expected, right? Something weird, something strange, something outside of the norm. So then you can say, well, I don't know, I think heterosexuality is pretty queer because, to me it's queer. And it's like, well, not exactly, because that would be the norm. If we were to look at the numbers, like typically this is whatever, right? So when something is saying something is unorthodox, then that means it would be something outside of the norm, something that is not established, right? So something that would be significantly less common.
Yeah.
Those would all be included in the definition of orthodox. But again, this is a semantic argument, and I don't expect you to be honest.
Hold on. I think you're being dishonest. So when Christianity started, right, and it was just this so-called God and his followers wandering around the fucking desert, was it a cult then?
At that time, Judaism was. I don't know if there were any really particularly established religions at that point. Like I don't know
if there were established.
I'm sorry.
Religions?
What I mean is I don't know if there were like any like hyper prevalent religions that would have been able to be established like contrary to that, right?
What?
So I don't know what the numbers of Jews were versus the numbers of people that believed in what's that religion? Roman mythology, for instance, because like Roman mythology originally was very much a religion, and then it eventually became very much more secular.
Wasn't the Christian cult just like an offshoot of Judaism? That the Jews rejected.
Jews rejected Christianity, and it started out.
It was a cult, right? It was like a cult.
It was never considered a cult. I don't know.
So why wouldn't it be? It was unorthodox at the time.
Because Because at that point there wasn't an Orthodox church at that point. Like these words, these words, like literally, if we look at the word, if you look at the etymology of the word is based, like it literally started becoming based off of the establishment of religion, like I mean, off of the establishment of Christianity.
Wait, so
I don't know if
so
the word
you're saying-
Orthodox even existed before Christianity. I mean, before Christianity. I don't believe that it did. Let's look at the etymology if we need to.
I think you're being like, I think you have to know you're being dishonest right now. So far as I'm aware, lying is a sin in your cult. So you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, the word orthodoxy
but
didn't exist until the 15th century. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
like yeah,
so
the word was
you're
formed
feeling
literally with
twist-
Christianity in mind. I knew it. That was my point. That's what I was saying.
Can you tell me? Can you tell me? Again, just maybe I'm misunderstanding. Can you tell me why? Can you explain to me clearly why a cult is not the same thing as religion?
Because
Right,
I already
please,
did. This is semantics,
wait, please,
man.
please.
This is
Other than
semantics.
okay,
I don't want to
other
go
than
any
one
further
being
into that.
one being like orthodox, right?
Sure, that's literally the first definition. So no, I can't.
Usual,
I can't make
and
another
one being
distinction.
unorthodox, which is like not widely accepted.
Sorry, I
Can you
don't.
tell me how a religion is not just a popular fucking cult?
So I don't subscribe to proprietary definitions. As I said, the word orthodoxy was literally created with respect to Christianity. I've already explained this. This is definitely semantical. Please go back to your other non-substantive arguments that you were giving, such as Christianity is harmful because of the fact that.
Wait, but you brought this up, so I just want to settle this. You brought this.
There
up
is no settling it. I'm not going any further into this.
I was being dishonest.
I'm not going to.
I was being dishonest.
You are being dishonest.
I'm not. Describe your fucking cult.
I'm not going to go any further.
So tell me how it's not a cult.
Okay, so I'm not going to go any further into this because
is it just because it's popular?
I mean, he doesn't want to engage with this.
I'm not engaging in this any further. This is definitely a waste of time.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah. So back to the main argument, though.
Yeah. So to be clear, I'm gonna keep calling Christianity a cult.
Okay, sure. You can go ahead and choose to do so. Like I said, I don't expect you to actually be charitable or to be reasonable in this, so it's fine. But the idea is, at the end of the day, like. You can't keep presenting Christianity as something like you can't keep strawmanning Christianity and then strawmanning the religion and being completely reductive and ignoring all of the positive benefits and then expect to make a cogent argument because like you are literally being reductive when you try to say that.
Wait,
Hold on.
Benefits.
Oh, but you're being reductive when you say that. All Christians are anti, or that the vast majority of Christians are anti-abortion, or that the Christian beliefs are anti same-sex marriage, or necessary like all of those things. That if we can look at the statistics and find out that the vast majority of people believe something, then to continue to ascribe that to something is just wrong. Especially when we recognize that even in secular societies, that people held on to those positions and people were opposed to it. Not all. I don't even know if it was the majority, but there have been plenty of secular societies that have shunned and looked down on abortion in Asian countries and all around the world. So the idea that we're going to try to say that it's just necessarily Christian and not just the development of mankind as we become more understanding and more enlightened, that we've softened on different issues and become more socially progressive, the idea that you're going to try to ascribe that to just Christianity, again, is just misplaced, and you keep doing that.
Wait, so you're saying all these things, that progressive, we modernize, yada yada. It seems to me like this happens in spite of the religion, not because of it. So again, I'm just trying to figure out. Like I think I've acknowledged, right, the beneficial aspects of a religion, right, in general, right, a useful way to teach people not to do bad things to each other, right. But I think that can also, and what I'm focusing on is a negative aspects of religion, because I think all the positives that we've gone over can be arrived at through secular means. I don't think you need a God. I'm going to say this again. You don't need a God to teach people not to hurt each other, right? Or not to steal, or not to kill, or not to rape, right? So this is why I've acknowledged that all those things are true, that Christianity and other religions can be useful ways to teach people not to do these things, right? But what I'm saying is I believe these things can be arrived at through secular means. So this is why I'm focusing on the negative aspects of religion in general. I guess right now, Christianity. And this is why I'm honing in on it, because I don't understand why we need this baggage, right? Here at all. Like, I don't understand what we gain by having this baggage here, which is, anti-gay nonsense.
Again, it's a pejorative representation.
The oppression of women.
It's not the belief of the average
slavery
Christian.
shit. racism, like all these things are
Pro-slavery,
justified
the
through
entire
religion all over the
abolition,
planet.
the entire
So
abolitionist
I'm just
movement
asking you,
was Christian.
given that the positives can be arrived at through other means, why do we need a religion?
So you've asked this question 3 times, and I've answered it every time. And I just
don't
want to
think
point.
you
Hold on,
answered.
and I want to point out now that you're getting circular and going back to like trying to be pejorative and trying to be completely selective, right? So you can't sit here and say that Christianity was pro-slavery when the vast majority of the abolitionist movement was Christian, right? You can't then go and say that. Wait, hold on. Prime, can we get some help here? So yeah, you can't do that. You can't then say that the vast majority of Christianity is pro-abortion when we recognize that the vast majority of Christianity is anti. You can't say that the vast majority of Christianity is anti-abortion when I've literally provided you a link with Pew Research that clearly denotes the fact that the vast majority of Christianity is pro-choice, right? So, like, again, you can't keep misrepresenting things when we have literal facts and figures in front of you and then keep on trying to parrot these same arguments. Like, you're just wrong here. That's just not true. That's not the way things work.
So I guess we're going to hone in on like the slavery thing, right? So you said the Quaker movement was Christian, these people acted against slavery, yada, yada. But isn't it also true that in the South, but also in the North, by the way, but mostly in the South, there were preachers using Christianity to justify slavery, that say that black people were subhuman, and because they were subhuman, and because God had given the white man, custodianship or ownership of the earth, and there were the fucking shepherds of the flock, whatever the fuck, that it was therefore justified to have these people in slavery, right? I think that when Jefferson Davis, the fucking president of the Confederacy, literally had in one of his earliest speeches, right, so the slavery was established by God himself, right? So you can't just say, oh well, look at the Quakers, and ignore the fact that in the South, there were Christians all over the fucking place preaching the exact opposite, right? So if we were to suck God out of the equation there, pull religion out of this disagreement, right, of slavery, right? What would we lose? Like, what do we gain by having like a God there to tell us one way or the other whether or not people should be enslaved, right? This is why I keep asking you, right? Because you keep saying, oh well, you keep saying that like, hey, these are all the beneficial aspects of religion, right? Throughout history, religion has led to some positive things. Sure, I agree. Right? I think that's religion has also led to plenty of really negative shit all over this fucking planet, and I think we're at a point where we can start moving away from it. And every time I say that and I ask you why we still need this thing, this fucking magical thinking, these fucking fairy tales, you say, well, because look at how I think you pointed to like your own beliefs, and you said look at that the Quakers were religious and therefore we need Christianity. I'm just asking you why we still need this thing. Like, I don't understand how you can acknowledge that all the benefits could come from somewhere else.
So I get it. That's why you keep asking. So you keep asking because you never listened when I responded. So I'll say it again.
I don't think your response is
tell me. I'll respond again and tell me if this sounds like something I'm just saying right now or if it's something I already said. One of the largest benefits what we recognize with religion was something that Richard Dawkins pointed out, and it's that people tend, because of the human psychology, people tend to do better when they believe that someone is watching them, when they believe that they have something that they're answering to. So in that for that reason, that's one of the benefits of religion. And then just to touch on the thing that you said about the thing that you said about the whole slavery in the South or whatever, and that there were that there were Christians that actually pushed that were using that there were people that were misusing Christianity in order to further their beliefs and in order to continue in slavery, right? I think it sounds like your argument there is that you want to hold Christianity responsible for not creating this monolithic style of thinking that forced everyone to coalesce into this anti-slavery idea. But then if Christianity was to do that, if it was a lot more autocratic and dogmatic, if people were more dogmatic about it, then yeah, I guess we would run into the situation where, yeah, then we would have all one thought. But the fact that we recognize humanity and the way people think are very, very complex, and like the idea that there would be people who claim to be Christians Christians that would be still doing heinous things, yeah, like I'm sorry, that's not gonna be enough to indict Christianity for me here. I'm sorry. Like that, they're just
So to be
you have some
clear,
bad actors and you
okay, I
decide to
understand.
try to
So
paint
to
them.
be
That's
clear,
stupid.
what you're saying is that the reason we need religion, right, despite acknowledging that we could get all these positive things from other places, you think the one positive thing that we can't get, right, is uh, you think that people are more likely to behave in good ways if they think something is looking over them and something's gonna punish them. You didn't say that, but I think that's implied. You think that something that they need to behave this way because otherwise, something is going to be upset.
Nope.
I disagree.
Nope.
It doesn't. Please,
That's
it doesn't.
that's
Please,
not
it
what I
doesn't matter
said.
to me that.
That's a straw man.
Okay, that you said that's what Dawkins said, right? That people people behave better basically when they think that there is like something looking over them. Right? There is some kind of God. Right? Is that a fair?
Yeah, it's not just about whether or not there's God. Like the way they came to this conclusion is through a study, a very large study in which they found that people, when they were asking people, or there was an opportunity for people to do like a donation with to donate things, donate money in a donation box, and in one of them they drew a set of eyes on the box, and just the fact that it had eyes, it gave people when the box had eyes on it, people tended to donate a lot more than when they didn't. They were very very disparate outcomes, and so the takeaway from that experiment was that I don't know. It was something that Richard Dawkins had cited. It's a known study. I can look it up for you if need be. But what they recognized was that when people feel like things are watching them, then they tend to focus. I mean, they tend to do better. And it's not necessarily that they expect some negative outcome. It's just even sometimes hoping for a positive outcome. When people think that there are other things watching them, then they tend to do better, even when they're alone. It's just a psychological condition of humanity. So like this idea that and again, please don't try to make this sound like this was like the exclusive reason for why I think Christianity is good, because it's not the only reason why. I believe that there are God knows how many positive tenets within the Bible. It's been largely a lot of what our society has been based on when it came to the forming of our laws. It informed large portions of some of the people who were the architects of our Constitution. We recognize that a lot of our a lot of our legal system was based loosely on and informed very large. It was based and informed largely by religion in a lot of ways. So this idea that it's just the fact that people think they're going to watch you, I don't think that's it at all. I think Christianity has been largely the motivation for a lot of progressivism in this country and in the world at large. And I think some of the institutions that we recognize now that are so insanely beneficial, like hospitals and things like that, we owe those to Christianity. That's what started it. So I think it's been beneficial. It continues to be beneficial. We look right now in this country, and the vast majority of charitable giving is done by religious people. So they far outgive atheists or non-believers. So I think there are plenty of benefits, demonstrable, monetizable benefits of Christianity, on top of the psychological benefit that people tend to do more and do better when they feel like there are people watching them. I think there's a bevy of reasons. I'm just listing a few of them.
Okay, so that is basically so people feel like people do better when they feel like they're being watched over. Something is watching them, whether or not it's God. If it could be something else, why couldn't it be a fucking social criticism, right?
Sure.
I don't see if all it takes is drawing a pair of eyes on something, right, for people to behave better. Why do we need God? Right, so that just seems silly in the first place, right? So I disagree with Dawkins, right? I think that you can teach people to be better without scaring them, right? Into thinking something might be watching them, whether it's God or whether it's a pair of eyeballs that's drawn on the collection basket that's looking at them, right? But if all it takes, right, to teach people to do better is to draw eyes on things, and we should do that instead, right? Secondly, you keep pointing to like beneficial things that have come from Christianity in the past. I've already acknowledged this. I've said again and again that there are good things that have come from religion. What I also said is that I think we're at a time where we can start moving away from this magical thinking. I think we've progressed as a civilization to the point where we don't need to teach children that there's like a demon, right, that's going to punish them if they do bad, right? There's a God that's going to be upset with them if they lie or if they steal or if they don't pray enough. right? I think we're at a point we can stop indoctrinating children that way. This charitable giving thing is something that's thrown around by like religious people a lot. But if you actually look at those studies, right, they include religious giving to religious organizations. So that means when they're passing around the collection plate at church, right, they include those donations. They include donations to these organizations that tell you that if you give to them, God is going to be happy with you, right? So yeah, people are going to be giving to these institutions, which then use that money. Yeah, they do have some charities. Yes, that's true, but a lot of that goes to support the institution itself. This money is used very inefficiently, and when it is used charitably, this is used as like to bring in more people into the fucking cult, right? It's recruitment, indoctrination, with charitable intentions wrapped around it, right? And in bringing more people into this cult, they ensure the continued existence of the cult, right? So again, if all you're saying is that when I'm being added and thing, is that people need to feel like they're being watched, they're being looked at, to do better. I think that's pretty silly on its face. But if that is the case, I don't see what we gain from having some kind of God that we wouldn't gain from drawing eyes on things, right? If that's literally all it takes according to the study that you brought up. So again,
yeah. So that's that's reductive too.
I've acknowledged again and again, yes, there are good things that have come from religions. What I'm saying is that I think we're at a point in our civilization where we can start moving away from this. I don't see a need today to continue to indoctrinate children to these cults, to give money to these cults, to legitimize these cults and treat them as good things, right? To have fucking deference for priests who devote their lives to these cults, and to bringing in more fucking followers and whatnot to their version of God. I think all these are negative things, and I think that we should start as a society, as a civilization, start moving away from this magical thinking to something that's more, I think, sustainable, something that breeds less bigotry, less hate, and that just something like secular humanism, right? I just don't understand why you feel like we need God for any of these things.
Yeah. So, first off, I think this whole idea, like I like how you're attempting to like kind of hand wave that the vast majority of charitable giving is Christian in nature, and yeah, you can try to dismiss that by saying, well, yeah, people are donating to churches, but we also recognize that the vast majority of food banks, the vast majority of shelters, the vast majority of all charity in this country is Christian in nature. And Christian, and they're normally tied and associated with church. Sometimes more loosely, sometimes more whatever. Hold on, wait. Okay.
Just really quick.
You went on for a while, but it's cool.
Why couldn't we instead support secular food banks, secular groups that do charitable things?
Well, no one's stopping anyone from doing it. It just seems most of the time secular people aren't as interested. It's not like there aren't secular food banks. It just seems like the vast majority of food banks in this country are religious, because it sounds to me like religion tends to have lots of religion implores its followers and its constituents to typically engage in this sort of activity, and because of that tends to be why the vast majority of charitable organizations are Christian. So it's not like that. It's not like that we can't. It's not that it can't happen. It just seems like it doesn't, and that's another reason why we recognize the benefits of Christianity. Why couldn't the first hospitals and homeless shelters and food banks? Why couldn't those have been secular? Why couldn't they have? They could have been. It just seems like Christianity had enough of the impositions within its text to cajole people into doing these sort of activities. So then they tend to be Christian.
Do you know what the difference is in religious and non-religious people? In terms of like charitable giving.
I guess I could look up the numbers. Yeah. I mean, do you have the figures in front of you?
No, I don't have it in front of me right now.
I can find it. I just know
But
that the
I'm
majority
asking
of it.
because typically when people bring up these studies, it's because they're like looking at them, right? So I just assume that if you don't have it in front of you, that's okay. But when I looked this up, I think like last year or something, if I remember correctly, it's like 9%, right? It's like 9% less non-religious people give to charity than religious people. And if you don't include giving to religious
Let me look it up.
organizations,
That's not true.
like churches, like synagogues, like whatever, the edge in the charitable giving actually goes to the non-religious people, right? So it's not that they're like just not giving at all. It's that they're giving a little less because they're not giving to a religious organization that tells them that God will be happy with them if you give the church money. If when the church passes around the basket, if you don't throw $10 in there, like God's gonna be upset, right? So I just don't understand why, like, again, if you're acknowledging that, like, I keep going back to this because I feel like you're not answering like the question. Um, if you're not like if you're acknowledging that these things, right, can be done in secular with secular means, right, that all the morality can be taught through secular means, food banks, right, there can be secular food banks, there can be secular hospitals, there can be secular all these things, and you've acknowledged that religion um, breeds tribal thinking. And we've gone through some of the ways that religion negatively impacts the world today, and has in the past. What do we gain today from furthering these religions, from continuing to indoctrinate children in these religions, from not taxing these religions out of existence? Like, I just don't understand, right? If you'd like to
here I can
pretend that there's
explain.
some kind of spirit, if you'd like to pretend that there's some kind of spirit thing watching over you and that makes you do better, that makes you treat people better, I guess you can do that, right? Some people like to pretend that their ancestors are watching over them. That's okay too, right? But I just don't understand why this is something that shouldn't be looked down on, even something that shouldn't be seen spoken of for what it is, right? Which is magical thinking, delusion, uh, nonsense, right? And it seems to me that today in the United States, but also in the world, right? These people are put up on this pedestal. The U.S. they're not like taxed even. In other countries, they're given like power in the government itself, right? Because they claim to have answers, because they claim to know God, but for all these fucking reasons. It just seems like we'd be much better off if there weren't all these religious groups, these fucking cults all over the planet, these cults in the United States, whatever, however many cults of sects of this Christian cult you're part of in the United States that are claiming that God is on their side and that when they say things should be a certain way that God is with them. I just don't think we gain anything from it as a society. We have in the past. It's been useful for organizing people, but going forward, it seems to me that we're at a point where we can start moving away from magical thinking, stop pretending that there are ghosts in the forest or they're going to kill us, or demons under the bed, that there's a devil in the fucking closet that's gonna be upset with us if we lie. Like, it just, I don't see anything we're gaining from this, right? And you pointing to the Quakers and ignoring the Christians in the South who are justifying slavery, or pointing to the formation of hospitals, and ignoring that the reason these hospitals were formed by Christians is because just about everybody was fucking Christian at the time. Just like, I just, it doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Yeah.
Right? So
Okay. So there's a few things. One, if you decide that you want to compare giving from Christian people versus secular people, and then you exclude all of the Christian giving, I'm pretty sure you can find some numbers where it's like,
not Christian giving.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Giving to religious
charities.
organizations.
Like
churches.
No. Yes, but if the church has a food bank, so this is something that I do, right? I'm a pianist, so for a living, I play the piano for churches. But a large portion of that, some of the services that we did were playing for like the homeless, and during those time we'd give out taxi vouchers, clothes, and taxi vouchers, clothes, and we'd feed them a meal and have a church service with them. The idea that you would try to exclude that and say, well, no, you can't give to a church, when you recognize even within the church itself, then they have literal, like they have the tithe portion of it, which is typically not charitable giving, and then you have the offering portion, which is where your intent is literally to fund charities. Those are two separate things that are within churches, and the idea that we would exclude that when we recognize that Christians, being part of a church, would recognize that a church has an outreach program used to aid the homeless, and then we would try to exclude those funds sounds absolutely ridiculous. And I think you can understand why. That's number one. Number two, the question about why we don't tax churches. The reason why we didn't tax churches is because when it came to community development, the vast majority of community development came through churches. That's historically what happened, and we still recognize now the vast majority of charities, the vast majority of food banks, the vast majority of homeless shelters. Those things are still Christian in nature, which is why the government has always afforded them some. Why we've not had to tax them, because we recognize that they've done so much considerable good for our community. They've done so much considerable good for the country. Like I said, the hospitals were charitable. That's why we have so many hospitals, St. Jude's and so on and so forth, right? Because we recognize that the vast majority of those things, they were operating on pro bono basis. So, like, the idea that it's like, no, we should just tax them, ignoring all of the good that they do for the community, ignoring some of the problems that they help solve by the charitable giving and all of their organizations. It just sounds absolutely absurd to me. It sounds like somebody, again, who's so poisoned with his disdain for religion that he's willing to ignore all of the benefits that they provide for society today in 2020 or 2021 in this country, that you would ignore all of that just because you have such an abhorrence for religion, and that you would do so much harm to society by taking away so many funds that are typically used to benefit those who are in greater need. It just sounds insane. It sounds insane to me. Yeah, I get it. Like, you hate religion, but it's just, could you be less selfish?
Well, I don't think that I mean, I'm not gonna get into that. So you framing this outreach to homeless people is like, something charitable, they're doing this good thing, when I can understand that thinking if you're within the cult, but from outside of the cult, what that actually looks like is religious institutions using money given to them by indoctrinated people most of them who are indoctrinated from childhood, right, by their parents, using money given to them by cult members that they're not taxed on, taking that money, going to areas where people are suffering, where people are vulnerable, and using using that money to pull people into this cult, to brainwash them, to teach them that, hey, here's some food, God's watching over you, yada yada, rather than like, and giving them like some ghosts here, right, to take credit for the good that's being done. It just seems really that's disgusting to me, right? So I can understand how from within the cult you feel like you're going out and you're doing a good thing, but to me it seems like these people are like taking advantage of vulnerable people, pulling them into this cult, teaching them that God is watching over them, right? The same God who apparently had them out in the gutter in the first place, and that this happened for a reason, yada yada. When again, there's no reason at all that same kind of charitable giving, the same kind of help and uplifting these communities couldn't be done through a secular organization. There is no reason that can't be the case, and there is nothing gained at all at any point of that transaction, right? Handing over the food to this homeless person, maybe getting them into a shelter or something. There's nothing that is gained at any part of that transaction from the inclusion of a god, from the inclusion of a cult, from the inclusion of magical fairy tale thinking. Right? So, again, it just seems like we'd benefit a lot from sucking God out of the equation here. I'm saying, hey, it's not the space ghost that's watching over you. It's people. It's your neighbor. It's the people in the community that have come together, pull their money, and now we're buying you food, and we're going to help you get out of the gutter. It's us, right? It's human beings. It's not God, right? It just seems like, again, there was nothing gained at any point of this transaction, at any point in any of these transactions, from including a fucking space ghost, right? An all-powerful space ghost, right? And it seems like we actually might gain something from instead teaching that it's human beings that are doing this. It's your neighbor, and they don't need a god to do this. They just need the fucking love for fellow humans. So I don't know. I can understand again how from within that cult, that's the mindset that you've got. That you see outreach it's like a positive thing. They're pulling people to the light of God and all this kind of bullshit. I just see it as these institutions preying on vulnerable people, sometimes mentally unwell people, and that just seems disgusting to me.
Here we go again. So yeah, I get it. So I think your entire approach to this conversation is, let me just try my best to state as everything that you say, even if it has a very net benefit, like if it's a net benefit, we can just go ahead and state it as pejoratively as possible to try to make sure that I dissuade people from doing this thing. But I think you keep asking me this question, and I think you're answering it for me, actually. There is nothing stopping secular people from doing it. There's nothing stopping secular people from creating the hospitals. There's nothing stopping secular organizations from creating homeless shelters or taking care of the people in need, and doing things with senior citizens and all of the various other charitable organizations within Christianity that tend to function and flourish. There is nothing stopping secular people from doing it. They just don't to the same degree. There's nothing particularly motivating them to do it, and that's the benefit of Christianity, is we recognize that the vast majority of charitable giving happens to be Christianity, because that is a motivating factor. You can't, these things are inextricably tied together when you recognize how consistently and how frequently it's found within the text, how much you need to look out for your neighbors, and how much you can't turn a blind eye to people who are suffering, and so on and so forth. That's why that's why that imbalance is there. That's the benefit. You keep asking me what the benefit is, that's what it is. All of the positive texts within the scriptures that constantly motivate people to do all of the good that we've recognized historically and even today happens at very disproportionate rates, that's the benefit. That's why we need Christianity, because it seems like secular, whatever secular motivations don't seem to be as effective, because those numbers tend to pale in comparison.
You're overstating the difference here.
It's not 9%. Can you find me anything?
Okay,
when I looked, the thing that I read said 64%. That was the last thing that I remember reading. It was that 64% of all charitable giving within this country was Christian. And if so,
I think you need to reread that, right? So let's pretend it is 64%, right? It's not, right? But let's pretend it is. So in this case, we have 64% charitable giving coming from religious people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is going to religious institutions that use a lot of that money to prop up the institution itself, so they can keep having church services. They can do outreach, they can do missionary work, they print out pamphlets, all this kind of shit. And the rest, and some of it, yes, is going to homeless people, is going to help people, is going to outreach, is going to help people, going to food banks, things like this. But even that, right, has this cult wrapped around it, is used to pull people into the cult, right? So this cult can sustain itself. So it seems like, again, if the only benefit here, right, is that 20% more, whatever the fuck it is, of these people are giving to these institutions, it just seems like we could start pulling away from religion. We can start encouraging people instead to give more to secular institutions. I think some of the largest charities in the United States and on the planet are secular institutions. Some of the biggest churches in this country are secular. I don't think the vast majority of churches in this country are like religious.
They are. You're wrong. You're wrong. Yeah, the vast majority of churches in this religion the vast majority of churches in this country are super Christian. Literally over 76% of the country is Christian. 76% of the country identifies as Christian. So yeah, they're not secular. You're just wrong.
That doesn't mean. Okay, so do you think that if a Christian starts a bank, that's a Christian bank? Do you think that's how that works?
Dude, look. Okay, hold on. First off, you're literally you go and make up numbers, and you make up numbers about how the money is spent, saying, "Oh, churches are just literally spending money on their own buildings."
We can't hear you if you're talking.
Oh yeah, dude, you literally made up numbers, and you're like, oh yeah, the reason why churches are functioning the way they do, the reason why they're getting all that is they're just using it on themselves and so on and so forth. When we recognize that nonprofit organizations are actually audited disproportionately in comparison to the rest of society. So the idea that they would just take the money and then not be spending the money on anything charity related, not be spending it actually on the homeless and so on and so forth, is actually just not true. They are spending they are spending the vast majority of their charitable giving. That it does go towards charity. They have tithes, and the tithes that they get, those things they don't have to spend any of that on charity or whatever. But they have offerings, which they do, and then even sometimes to a deficit, churches donate towards it. And at the end of the day, we recognize the vast majority of charitable organizations in this country, as I've said a billion times, are Christian. So you can try your best to downplay and hand wave all you want to, but we recognize where it's happening, and it's happening from Christian organizations, and that's what's benefiting society. And if I was a person that was in need in that situation, and I had a church, and I had a church that was willing to give me need when we recognize that the vast majority of secular society doesn't, I think I would probably be in favor of that organization too. And if the idea is that they can proselytize simply by taking care of a societal need, and that the rest of society isn't doing it, then you have the audacity to chastise them for proselytizing by taking care of a need that the society needs. It sounds absolutely absurd to me. How could you be that dismissive? Like, this is a need that needs to be met. Obviously, we refuse to meet the need. The people that are meeting the need are getting a benefit, and that they're proselytizing. But I think the proselytizing is bad, even though we recognize that they are actually taking care of something and performing a societal function that's absolutely needed and absolutely beautiful. Get the freak out of here, bro. Your entire point here is just let me try my best to point things out as pejoratively as possible, while completely ignoring all of the net benefits that come from these things, while constantly constantly re-asking the question, well, what's the benefit? What's the benefit? Ask the homeless people who are constantly fed at food banks on a regular basis, ask them what the benefit. Ask when there's jackets donated towards homeless people in the wintertime, ask them what the benefit is. When there are shelters provided, ask them what the benefits are. When there are women's shelters and battered women's shelters that are predominantly Christian, ask them what the benefits are. When we start looking at all of the times when Christians go into low-income neighborhoods and take children to summer camp, ask those kids who experience things that they've never experienced before what the benefits are. Keep asking that question while I keep providing you answers, and then keep recircling back as you try to rephrase everything as pejoratively as possible, so you can re-ask this redundant question that's been answered over and over and over again with facts and figures. Freak out of here, bro.
Okay. So, again, if all you're saying is that currently religious people give more to these organizations because they feel like they're being watched or whatever the fuck, then I'm going to ask you again, why can't we encourage people to do these things, right, without religion? Why can't we start moving away from religion? Right. So if all you're going to say is that it's the case that you somehow know that people are always going to give less without a God, right, without some kind of religion, I don't know how you would know that, right? I've acknowledged again and again that there have been good things that have come from from religious organizations, from religious beliefs, from religious prescriptions on like morality and hey, thou shalt not kill, yada yada. These are good things. But I think again, I'm going to say this again. We're at a point in our development as a society where we can start moving away from this magical thinking and start encouraging people to do good for other reasons. Right? Start encouraging people to give to the homeless, to give to food banks, to create these things, and they do, by the way. It's not as if it's the vast majority of charitable giving. It's like somehow like dwarfing non-religious charity. It's not.
It is.
Some of the largest charitable organizations in this country are run by atheists.
The vast majority are not.
So,
and the largest are Christian. The largest are Christian, and the vast majority
I don't
are
think
Christian.
it's true. I don't think it's true.
Find me any figure. The largest charitable organizations in this world, in this country, are absolutely Christian. I think isn't the largest the Salvation Army?
Wait, the largest. Hold on. I don't know if that's true. Hold on, but you bring up the Salvation Army when the Salvation Army itself has in their fucking doctrine on their website that the purpose of the Salvation Army is to evangelize and to spread the fucking cult, right? I don't see what we gain by having a charitable organization, right, that is also spreading this belief system, that causes bigotry, that causes hate, that has all this fucking baggage that comes with it. Right? Why couldn't we have something like the Salvation Army that does it without encouraging bigotry, that does it without encouraging it, without saying that gay people are bad, or trans people are bad, or that women have like a certain role in society, that and all these sorts of things. If you're saying that it's not happening now, I think it is happening. It's not happening to the same extent, maybe that it is in religious institutions. That might be true, but I don't see any reason we couldn't start moving in that direction. And why we shouldn't be encouraging people to move in that direction, to stop indoctrinating their children into fucking cults.
Okay, so the largest charitable organization in the United States is United Way of America. It's absolutely a Christian foundation. It was founded by Christian leaders. You keep asking, why can't we do that? And again, there's nothing stopping it from happening. But it seems as if whatever methods we use, because it's not like secular society is completely absent of the idea that we should be taking care of the homeless and the needy and the elderly and the sick and so on and so forth. It's not like a secular society is completely absent of it, but it seems to be ineffective in the sense that we recognize that Christian giving is dwarfing it. As again, I just pointed out to you, yes, the vast majority of charitable organizations in this country are Christian, and United Way Worldwide happens to be the largest charitable organization in this country. So not only are they the largest, they are also the vast majority. I'd be shocked if they weren't the top 3 largest organizations were Christian. In reality, Christian giving, charitable giving in this country does completely dwarf secular giving in this country. So it's, again, I don't know why. There's nothing stopping it from happening. You just don't. And it sounds to me, as someone pointed out in my chat earlier, I wish I gotta find it because it was pretty freaking poignant the way they said it, and I just happen to not be as articulate as they are. But it sounds to me like the way that you're attacking religion for some of the negative things by some of the negative individuals would be the equivalent of attacking science because somebody created an atomic bomb. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you can't just abandon science because somebody did something negative, in the same way that you can't abandon Christianity because one individual or because some individual did something terrible.
Wait, hold on. I think I can't. I wouldn't compare science to religion. First of all, I think that's kind of silly. But yeah, I'm gonna say that given the things that people justify today with this kind of magical thinking, we should start moving away from magical thinking and towards something more scientific, right? We stop encouraging people to donate to institutions that indoctrinate children, that encourage bigotry, that encourage hate, that do all these fucking negative things, that and just not just in the United States, but all over the planet, right? And it's not just Christianity, Islam too, Buddhism too. Plenty of pagan religions do this. Hinduism does this, right? This kind of magical thinking is used to justify awful fucking things all over this planet, and has been for centuries, right? So I don't think we gain anything from continuing the fucking fairy tales. We'd be much better off without them. I don't think you've given me a reason we wouldn't be much better off without them going forward. If you're going to say, hey, charitable giving might go down, maybe, sure,
not possibly. Maybe, definitely. Charitable giving would go down dramatically. Homeless shelter, if we recognize that the vast majority of charitable organizations that are the newly created charitable organizations, existing charitable organizations historically have always been Christian. Like, this is the vast majority. So yes, the idea, if we recognize we have a secular society and there is nothing inhibiting them from doing it, but we recognize that they're not giving as much, they're not creating as many foundations, they're not serving as many people. So yes, if we were to completely eradicate Christianity and we can recognize that there is an obvious correlation between charitable organization and Christian giving, then we have to recognize that to completely abandon Christianity would have an impact on charitable organizations. I don't understand how you would even argue against that. Come on.
Well, hold on. I think that we can just rather than propping up these cults by not taxing them, by giving them fucking preferential treatment in some governments, by treating priests and imams and all these people as people that should be respected for their devotion to this fairy tale. If instead of doing that, we started taxing these things and started devoting more money as a society to helping the needy, right? To programs to uplift people, right? Which can all be done through secular means. I think maybe over time we wouldn't need these things anymore, and that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to a world where we don't need a god, right, to scare people into submission, to scare people into giving money to a church or to a homeless shelter or to anything, right? I'd like to get to that point, and it seems like you're standing in the way of that because in the past, maybe
No,
people need to be scared into submission. I don't think we're at that point anymore. I think we're at the point we can start moving forward, right? We just like we left behind slavery, we can start leaving behind religion, right? Like we left behind fucking human sacrifice. Humanity can start moving away from religion, right? I think we're at that point. I'd like to start doing it, and it just seems like you're pointing to the current state of affairs as if they're all they're what has been and all that must be, right? No, that all that will ever be. But that just seems like short-sighted thinking to me, right?
No, it's really no. It's insane to me because you're saying it seems like short-sighted thinking, but like literally first you tried to say, and you were just wrong. First you tried to say that like the biggest charity in the country is secular, which you were just wrong. Then you tried to say, oh, it's not completely dwarfing it, which of course you were wrong. Then like now you're sitting there and you're saying, well, look, there's some distant future in which maybe we'll get to a point where a secular society will be as charitable and will have all of the net benefits that have come pretty much obviously correlated from Christianity. And when we get to that point, then I'm willing to entertain that argument. But apparently, it seems like, given that there are no inhibitions caused by Christianity that would prevent secular society from joining in and doing things at the same level, then it seems like we have enough evidence, and we've had literal centuries of it, where we have enough evidence to recognize that the vast majority of charitable giving is going to come through Christianity. And so since that tends to be the case, and history tends to be a pretty good evidence for how things will be, until you can present me with some sort of evidence that demonstrates that secular people are as charitable as Christians, then I'm going to always believe that Protestant Christianity will outperform secular society when it comes to that. And until we have any reason to suspect otherwise, that's the reason why I would always be a proponent of Christianity.
Okay, so it just seems like this kind of boils down to
There's something going on. I've been trying to ignore it. Fanatic, like so you're hitting like something, hitting a.
Oh, sorry.
Sounds like you. Okay, go on.
Okay. So it just seems like, again, it just seems like you're saying that it seems like you can't imagine a future where secular people, non-religious people, give as much to charities as religious people do currently. And even acknowledging that a lot of the money, right, maybe not the vast majority, but certainly a portion of money that goes to these religious institutions is used to for pamphlets, for outreach, for
you don't have any evidence of that.
for
you don't have any evidence of that.
Fucking all these things, right?
You don't have any evidence of that, so I'm not entertaining that.
Wait, hold on. Wait, you're telling me that the religious institutions don't use the money that they get from charitable donations to pay for building upkeep, for pamphlets, for all these things? You're telling me they don't use it for any of that?
So what I've said and what I explained before, as a person who's actually participated in these things and has been heavily involved in them, is that there is a very clear distinction between tithes and offerings, and the offerings are used for used specifically for charitable organization. They're used for just the various charitable organizations that I've mentioned before. Tithes can be used for whatever the freak the church wants to, but offerings typically are designated to specific things. So they will have a homeless offering. They'll have battered women's offering. They will have kids in freaking Ethiopia offering, and they will have the missionary offerings. So they'll have different offerings for different things. And so the idea that they're just wholesale using the freaking offerings in a charity, because there's a difference between tithing and charity, that they would be using and misappropriating the charity for their own pockets. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't your Joel Osteen and there aren't some of those terrible people who are doing that. Obviously, there are people who misuse it. I think Joel Osteen is absolutely a crook. But the fact that the vast majority of these charitable organizations that do exist, their funding is coming directly from Christian constituency. So the idea that no, I'm going to emphatically disagree with the idea that the vast majority that these churches are misappropriating their funds in the vast majority of cases.
Okay, so I don't think I said that they're misappropriating their funds, right? I'm not saying that they're all these people are using this money to enrich themselves. I'm saying that a lot of this money, some portion of this money, this charitable giving, whether it's offerings or tithes, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? Money that's given to the church, right? Is some of that is used to upkeep the church, to feed the priests, to pay for missionaries and their plane tickets, to pay for the upkeep of the building, right? All these things, right? For pamphlets, right? That are in these battered
You
women's
ignored the
shelters that
distinction
encourage
again.
people to seek God, that encourage people to seek God, for fucking flyers that are given to homeless people with the food, and encourage them to come to church service and whatnot, so they can be indoctrinated into this cult, right? It just seems to me, right, that people would be better off if instead of this money being set aside for the propagation of this cult, um, that money is instead going directly to some sort of non-religious institution, some secular institution that doesn't need to use that money to further any kind of cult, any kind of belief system, other than, hey, here's some food from your neighbors, right? And if you're saying that, like, again, if all you're saying is that because currently religious people give more to charitable organizations, therefore we need to further the existence of these religious institutions, even knowing all the harmful effects these religious institutions have on society. They stand in the way of progress on many issues in this country and all over the fucking planet, right? It just seems like, again, um, I would like to start moving away from that, right? I'm not saying there's something that can happen overnight, right? A lot of people in this country have been raised up in this belief system to feel that God is looking over their shoulder, and that's why they need to give to the church, and they're good people if they give, and yada yada. Um, but I think that we can start getting to a point in this society, and I think we're at a point in this society where we can stop giving these places special treatment. We can start encouraging people to give for reasons other than religious reasons, right? And that's what I'm trying to move toward. And it just seems like you're like this anchor around my ankle, around the ankle of society, right? So that we can't get there because people require some kind of maybe not a god, but they require this feeling that something is watching over them, looking at them, watching them, to be good people. And I just don't think that's the case, right? It's not true that um, just non-religious people don't give to these organizations at all. They do. They give to them in this country. They give to them in other countries, and countries that are more secular, countries that have put God on the back burner, still have a ton of charitable giving going around. And in many of these countries, they don't have some of the pitfalls, right, that come from religion. Right? They don't have some of the oppression of women, of LGBT people, of the organizers, the lobbying against like abortion rights and marriage rights, and they don't have children being taught that that their natural sexual preferences are abominations. They don't have women being taught that they're like supposed to be subservient to men because it says so in this holy book that was written a long time ago. It just seems like, yes, okay, we maybe in the short term we might lose some charitable giving, right? I think we can make up for that in other ways. We can start having a society that takes care of the poor, right? And I think we are in the United States moving in that direction, not because of Christianity, but in spite of it, in spite of religion, right? And I think that again, I think we can keep moving in that direction. I think that religion has been on the decline, and I think in the United States, but also in like a lot of Europe, and I'd like to keep going that way, right? And I just don't think, again, I don't think you've given me any reason to believe that in the future we can't get to a place where we don't need this like fairy tale to force people or to scare people to being good people. I don't. Right, I don't think you do. I think you might be a good person without God. Right, you might still think it's a good to give to poor people, to help people, to uplift people. Right, so I'd like to believe that um, if we could get rid of all the baggage, right, that Christianity has, but not just Christian. We've been talking about a lot about Christianity. There are other massive religions on this planet that hurt a lot of people. right? And those religions also do some good, right? They teach people some value systems that might be a positive in some ways. Maybe those people also donate more to charity in their countries, but I don't think we can ignore the baggage that comes with this thing, and I don't think the baggage, um, the positives, right? I don't think that they outweigh the negatives that come from that baggage. Right? I don't think they totally wipe out or outweigh the bigotry, the hate, the oppression, um, the justification for murder, war, and the dehumanization. I don't think they outweigh that. So yeah, I would like to move away from religion. I don't think you give me any good reasons not to.
All right, so yeah, I just think like the idea, like you again, you're just kind of just on a broken record. I think I've provided plenty of reasons, and I think anybody listening to this conversation can probably cite quite a few reasons why I've mentioned that Christianity seems to be, at least currently, pretty superior when it comes to encouraging people to do things that are largely beneficial and perform really beneficial societal functions that we really depend on. And so the idea that we might be able to one day get to a point where we can start motivating people to do so outside of religion, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that might happen. I never said that I can't imagine a world where it happens. I'm just saying that's not the world right now. If we ever get there and we get to a point where secular giving eclipses Christianity, then that would be one less argument for why we need Christianity. Now, I'm not going to ever stop believing because I obviously believe in God, right?
Do you have any?
Hold
Do you
on,
have any other
wait,
arguments for why we need Christianity?
wait. So, did you not hear any of the arguments regarding like? The only argument that I've ever mentioned was charity. That's
Well,
in
you
your mind?
mentioned hold on. You mentioned that hospitals came from Christianity, that
Sure.
the abolitionists were Christian,
Mm-hmm.
but I've agreed that there were some positive things that came from Christianity in the past, from religion in general in the past,
Mm-hmm.
that still come from religion, right? There are positive things today that come from religion. What I'm saying is that I don't think that any of those things cannot also be arrived at through like some kind of secularism, without the magical thinking. So if we're acknowledging, right, that both of these things, right, both like outcomes, right, can be both of those positive outcomes can be arrived at without a God, and that your side has the drawbacks, which is, the religions are used to justify murder, rape, um, bigotry all over the fucking planet. If that has these negative things, right, that we're getting along with the positive things, why wouldn't we just go with the thing that has the positives and no negatives?
I don't know. I definitely think the good, when we look at societally, we recognize that the good outweighs the bad. And I think we recognize even when it comes to things that like non-charity things, right? When we recognize that Christian marriages significantly outlasted, there were significantly less divorces within Christianity. At this point, obviously, society is getting to the point to where now even Christian marriages, I think, are at about 49%. Christian divorces rather are at around 49%. So even those are starting to, it's moving in that direction. But we recognize, that within Christianity, there are so many functions within society that seem to be pretty beneficial. So yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be a proponent of it. I feel like, the idea that like people can use Christianity to justify things. People can use secularism to justify plenty of things as well. What we recognize is that bias is a thing, and people can use their bias to justify whatever the freak they want to. Some people don't even need anything to justify it. They just say, I did it because I wanted to, and I'm that person, and I can do so, right? So you can keep on trying your best to ascribe all of the negatives you want to towards Christianity within this country, but I don't know. We have the numbers, and from any like kind of quantitative data, we can recognize that Christianity has a lot of net measurable benefits. So Yeah, I think it's always going to be a super beneficial things. And aside from that, like me myself, like personally, the experiences that I get, the peace that I have from Christianity, the difference that it made in my life to be able to become a Christian, and how much it changed me and changed my outlook and all of those things, and it fixed my depression and just so many things that I experienced for so many freaking years, the vast majority of my life. I think those benefits, the personal benefits that tend to that most Christians would tell you that they experience. I think those things are also particularly beneficial. So I think even if we get outside of that, I think having a personal relationship with God has been a super net beneficial thing for me personally. It's something that I wish everyone could experience, and I think having that. I think it's one of the most beneficial things, aside from all the measurable, quantifiable things that we were talking about before. Like the personal, properly basic way of knowing God and having that experience, I think is absolutely worth more than anything else that I've ever experienced. So I think if we want to get past the measurable, because obviously from any quantifiable way, it's super duper superior. If we want to get past the measurable, I think there's
I
other
don't think
benefits
that's
as
true.
well.
Hold on. I mean, maybe
Which part?
if you're like hyper focused on the United States, maybe you could make that argument, and maybe to be convincing to some people who don't care about gay rights and about the oppression of women, is there are Christian groups in this country currently just throwing money and lobbying and using all their influence to try to ensure that women don't have the right to abort. To ensure that religious people can discriminate in the work in their places of business, right? But even so, right? If you want to hyper focus on the United States, maybe some people don't care a lot about those things, and you might be able to make that argument. But if you pull out a bit, right, and look at Christianity's impact on the rest of the world today, and how in Africa, some of these Christian missionaries that this charitable money goes to, this tithing, whatever the fuck money goes to, use that money to go to Africa to spread their religion there, and as a result, you have gay rights being stripped away in many of these countries. We have corrective rape happening, because people believe that lesbians are abominations, and that they're like blaspheming, so you need to rape them and fix them that way. You have witches being burned, right, using God as a justification, right? So you have terrorist groups all over the planet that use religion to pull in new members, right? To justify the harm they do, right? To people in their country, to people on the other side of the world. You have, we can look at fucking Poland, where massive discrimination and attacks against LGBT people using religion as a justification, right? I don't think it's like so clear that the positives here outweigh the negatives. I think maybe in the United States, but that just seems like very I don't know. It just seems
Short-sighted. So yeah, it's
you've
not
got like a hyper focus on the U.S.
It's not. It's not that it's short-sighted. It's just I love it, because like what I feel like you're doing is you're kind of going to like, I guess it's like a movement of the goalposts, because this conversation, while it wasn't framed that way originally, has largely been centered on the United States. If you want to start talking about like crazily impoverished nations and where to recognize some of the different ways that Christianity affects them, I don't have enough information. I've never really studied them to be able to argue that, to really move the conversation in that direction. So if you could show me like, hey, well, here's the statistics that show in this other country that Christian or charitable giving is significantly at the lowest, and it's like, hey, that would be okay. So then for that country, it sounds like it's not beneficial. I just happen to live in the greatest country in the freaking world, which is the United States of America, and it seems like in this country, it seems like Christianity has been so insanely beneficial that the idea that we could just dismiss it outright just sounds a little bit absurd to me. But again, I can't. I'm not speaking for the rest of the world, because I don't know the rest of the world. I don't know it as intimately as I know the United States, as I recognize it, as I've seen our history, as I've studied our history. I guess I am probably a little bit more introspective in that regard, in that like I tend to look inward and look whatever. So yeah, I don't know. You can make those arguments all you want to, but I don't think that they really do anything for the conversation, especially as it's been contextualized so far.
I I think that the start of this conversation was about religion in general, and you've
Yeah.
hyper focused on Christianity in the United States, and as a result, like that's what the conversation has been kind of framed
Sure.
around, and that's fine. But I think that's saying that when I say that, hey, if we weigh the pros and cons of magical thinking of religion on this planet, um, it seems like the negatives, the cons, far outweigh the pros, right? And for you to say, well, hey, in the wealthiest nation on earth, in the most powerful nation on earth, in the most one of the most stable nations on earth, Christianity is a good thing. In a country where these rights that Christians might seek to strip from people are protected by a constitution, Christianity is a good thing, and ignoring that in other parts of the world that don't have these kind of protections, that don't have the benefit of being, the wealthiest nation on earth, the most powerful nation on earth, Christianity is wreaking havoc on their society. Is again short-sighted. It just seems like you're ignoring. You're like kind of you have blinders on, right?
No, you're just moving the goalposts because you recognize when it comes to this country, which is what we've been talking about, like what most of the conversation has been about. That's how the conversation has been. Like that's been the context, right? Like you want to digress so that you can move the goalposts because at first you made the statement, you made the inaccurate statement. Hey, the United States, the largest charitable organization in the United States is secular, which you were wrong about. You made the argument, that charitable organization it's only 9% difference, which you were wrong about. Like, so at the end of the day, like I get it. You want to retreat to something more broad so that you can try to dismiss and hand wave all of the quantifiable examples presented thus far in the conversation. That's what it sounds like you want to do, bro, because you recognize you're getting completely bodied. Like you cannot paint Christianity as you wanted to as pejoratively because you happen to be talking to somebody that happens to have studied it, that happens to practice it, that happens to know the history of it. And so now you're trying to pivot to just, no, let's look at the broader aspect of Christianity and let's try to look at it under the scope of insanely impoverished countries and then try to impugn Christianity onto them so that way we can try to actually maintain this spurious argument that you've been making thus far. That's what's happening, bro. Just admit it. Like the framing that you wanted doesn't actually apply to Christianity through any quantifiable means. So now you want to go somewhere more spurious. That's what you're doing.
Okay. So to be clear, you're saying that in the United States, because Christianity isn't doing all these evil fucking things, right? That Christianity is doing in the rest of the world, it is therefore like a positive thing. It's something that we should continue to propagate. We should continue to give money to these institutions. We should continue not to refuse to tax these institutions that then send missionaries to other parts of the world that don't have, again, the benefit of a constitution that protects a lot of the rights that Christians will seek to remove from LGBT people, from women across this planet. You're telling me that because we've already had the witch burnings, we've already had the fight for gay rights, we've already had the fight for women's suffrage, we've already had the fight against slavery, because we've already fought against all these wars against Christianity, right? Christianity is now a positive thing in this country because it's no longer, Christianity as it's practiced elsewhere. It's been practiced historically. Again, it's like, yeah, it's true that Christianity is not doing all the evil things in the United States that it's doing in other places of the world, right? But in the United States, I've pointed to evil things it is doing, right? Christianity is being used, and again, not just Christianity, but religion in general. It's being used to justify the fight against abortion, the fight against gay rights, the fight against trans rights. It's even used in this country to justify fucking war, right? And other parts of the world, and people in the support for fucking apartheid governments, right? But even still, right? People aren't being burned in the streets, right? Because Christians believe that witches are like fucking evil. And I can understand why, because if this is the case, you'd like to focus on the United States and the most powerful, the richest, one of the most stable countries on the planet. You'd like to say, hey, here, Christianity has been molded into something that can work in civilized society, right? Hey, and hey, we can ignore the bigotry. We can ignore the anti-gay agenda. We can ignore the anti-trans agenda. We can ignore fucking gay conversion therapy. We can ignore all these things, right? But and hey, look, they give more to charity though, so it's a good thing, right? So it's an overall positive thing. That's not good enough, right? Hey, yeah, giving more to charity is good. That's great. Good job. But they're also fighting against women's rights. They're also fighting against gay rights in this country. They're also teaching children that it's wrong to be gay, and that if they are gay, they should like be convert. They should go to fucking conversion therapy, and get like electric shock treatment and shit like that. And in other places in this world, right? That's just the United States. In other parts of this world, religion in general, but even Christianity, right? Your chosen cult is being used to justify witch burnings. It's being used to justify stonings. It's being used to justify terrorism. It's being used to justify the criminalization of human beings because of their fucking sexual preferences, right? It's being used to justify fucking rape, right? So I don't know. Even if we hyper focus on the United States, I don't think this kind of weighs out in your favor. I think that the negatives far outweigh the pros, and if we just pull the lens out a little bit further, right, and look at what your cult is doing to the rest of the planet, it's even fucking worse.
All right, so hold on.
We don't need to talk about that, but if we do, it's way fucking worse for you. So I can understand why you'd want to avoid doing that.
Nope, that's not what's happening. I love it because you keep on trying to rephrase what I'm saying, but I'm too articulate for that. So let me go ahead and let me say exactly what it is that I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that, I just only want to focus on the United States because whatever, yada, 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 yada. What I'm saying is, if we can recognize that Christianity is the prevalent religion in the United States, and then we look and we see the results that it has, and then we look at a greatly impoverished nation where Christianity happens to be prevalent, and we see completely disparate outcomes, then it's probably likely that the outcome, the difference in outcomes, is probably something other than Christianity. The idea that you can look at another country where Christianity where there are incredibly different results, and there are incredibly different factors, such as incredibly different poverty rates, and it's unrecognizably disparate, and then you would still say, see, no, Christianity did it there, but not here. Yeah, I think again that you're just being selective. That's confirmation bias there. The problem there, it isn't Christianity. The problem there is poverty. That's what the difference is. And I don't think that we molded Christianity into something acceptable in this country. I think Christianity molded this country. I think it's been largely influenced by Christianity. We can see it. We can recognize it. We've seen it historically. I mean, freak, nigga, we've sworn into the Bible for like centuries in this country when it came to, even though it's not necessary, but obviously the vast majority of the founding fathers were Christian. We swore into the Bible. We've had it in our courtrooms. We say, so help me God. There's been a tremendous Christian influence on this country from its founding until now, and we recognize we're the most powerful and successful nation in the freaking world. And everyone else gets our freaking benefits. We're the leading country when it comes to biotechnical advancement, dwarfing we're the number one country, dwarfing the next 9 leading countries combined. We defend the rest of the world when it comes to it. We have all of these other countries that are part of NATO, and they're literally putting 1%, sometimes less, 0.5% of their GDP in defense because they know Big Brother United States got their back. So meanwhile, we're literally defending the rest of the world. We have signed through NATO that we will come to the defense of all of them if it needs be. We are the vast majority of goods and services and charitable giving to all of the other countries in the world. We United States happens to be a very powerful and beautiful country. Now, I'm not saying that it's always been perfect. Obviously, some of the things that they've done to niggas in this country, obviously some of the things that they've done, they've been oppressive at times. Society in general used to be oppressive, even in secular places like Japan, where we recognize that there has been that Christianity wasn't the source of when it came to some of the ill will towards homosexuals and some of the outliers in society, we recognize that that's not Christian in nature. It's that the human condition is typically liking to associate with things that fit within a norm or that match their paradigm. So the idea that it's Christian that was so opposed to same-sex marriage, I think that's inaccurate, because we saw that same opposition in secular nations as well, and we saw that same opposition in secular attitudes as well. So yeah, it's not just a Christian thing. People in general have become more progressive with education and with intelligence and with enlightenment. People have become more progressive, and I don't think it's just that Christianity was the problem. I think society was a problem. People were a problem, and you just want to paint it as Christian. It's not that I want to only hyper focus on the United States. It's just that's what I'm the most informed about, because that's what I've been the most motivated to read about.
It's really interesting to me that you'd say that that Christianity is somehow tied to like the wealth of this country, and that these other countries that didn't have this Christian influence aren't wealthy, and therefore, like I guess the Christianity's influence on America has been a positive thing. When the reality is, a lot of these countries were devastated by colonialism, right? They're still suffering from the fucking the after effects of colonialism, and a lot of them are still basically colonies today. And that colonialism devastated these countries. They led to genocides, they led to slavery and racism that fucking destroyed the cultures of these regions. Was justified in many cases with religion, with the need to send missionaries there, to go there and to uplift these savages and these heathens and to bring them to God. And until they accepted God, they were less than human, right? So you could do whatever the fuck you wanted to them, right? This is like so to point to the damage that Christianity, right, has done to these countries through its missionary work, through colonialism, and to say that, hey, look at how awful those countries are, and look at how great we are when we've reaped the benefits of all these awful things that we've done to these countries, with this Christian justification in many cases, not just Christian, but just religious in general, right? Other religions did this too, and other religions still do this. Right? It's really interesting to me. I guess you could say that it is true, right? That we're in a better place right now, right? But I think that the reason for that isn't like, it's not like I don't think the United States is a powerful country, and that we're more progressive, and that we're advancing as a society, that we have the strongest military, and we're able to help all of these other countries through NATO because of Christianity. I think a lot of this is in spite of religion, in spite of Christianity, and that a lot of these fights that we've had to have to make this progress, right, that you're talking about, have been against religious institutions, against religious people, right? So, again, you're just like, the way that you're framing this, right, as if like all these positive things. I mean, even saying that we're like progressing, as if the prior like beliefs of your like religion, right? Prior Christians might have been far more anti-gay rights than you, right? I think that was the case. Christians in the past might have did justify slavery, and to say that we've progressed as a society, and we've progressed away from this religious interpretation, from what's in the Bible, from what's in a lot of these hadiths and shit like that. A lot of Muslims in the West don't really hold to that stuff anymore. Don't really believe that they can have sex slaves. Don't believe that they can execute people, right? Don't believe that they can force people to convert, shit like that. Again, that just seems like something that's happening in spite of religion, not because of it. And I think that if we sucked God out of this equation, right, we'd be much better off, right? Again, maybe not in the past, maybe the United States wouldn't be the powerhouse it is today without this religiously justified colonialism, right? Without going all over the planet to enslave and convert the heathens, right? Maybe the U.S. wouldn't be in as good a place as it is right now without doing that. But I think today we're in a place where we can stop doing that, where we can stop sending missionaries to Africa to teach these people that being gay is a sin, that gay people are abominations and they need to be killed and criminalized and all these things, right? And that's what I like to start doing, right? So if you're just appealing to tradition, if you're just saying that, hey, this country is built on Christianity and Christian philosophy, which I don't even think is true, then I don't know. What I'm telling you is that I'd like to start moving away from it. I think we're at a place where we can start to move away from it. And if the only benefit that we're gaining at this point is that religious people give more to charitable organizations, while they're while many of these religious institutions are advocating for the stripping of women's rights and gay rights, then hey, I'm willing to sacrifice the increase in charitable giving to get rid of all this anti-gay shit, all this anti-woman shit, all this negative fucking baggage that comes along with your cult.
So
It's crazy to me. Like, just last thing I want to say really quickly is just we've been talking past each other. Like, I can't believe how many times you want to keep saying, if the only thing you want to say is charitable, like, as if I haven't just kept going on and giving you more and more and more. It's crazy, man. Like, you literally, I don't think you're actually listening to the conversation. I think what you're actually doing is just wanting to keep saying your same thing over and over again and hoping that it sticks once.
yeah, I figured we'll just wrap it up. I'm not sure if there's anything else either you want to say at all.
Yeah. I got a
Let's do
closing
it.
statement.
Sure.
So, look, at the end of the day, like, anyone who was listening to this conversation, you guys heard how much we kept going back and forth. My point has been that I think with anything, we can look at a lens and see that, look at it through a lens and recognize that there have been positive and negatives that have been associated with Christianity. But at the end of the day, we can look at quantifiable benefits that are associated with the religion, and we recognize how we recognize how it affects society, how it fulfills some of the necessary things in society. You can choose if you want to be if you want to be an atheist. You can choose to be secular. You can choose to be a Christian. At the end of the day, the fact is we should be tolerant of other people's beliefs. We should be tolerant of other people who don't think and act like us, as Christianity demands that we do. So the idea that he wants to completely abolish it and he's so hostile towards religion is exactly intolerant. And we recognize how that sort of hostility can be so absolutely disastrous when it comes to things like hostility towards Jews, or when it comes to the way people can be, the way Christians used to be persecuted by the Roman Empire in the catacombs and in the freaking Colosseums at one point, or the way Christians are currently being persecuted in China, or the fact that they're making slaves out of Muslims in China right now through the Chinese Communist Party. It's insane to me that we still have to entertain these conversations where people who claim that secularism has all of these values but can be so absolutely abhorrent and so absolutely intolerant in this conversation and be so completely pejorative and misrepresent someone's personally held beliefs. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take that on the chin because that's what I got to do, right? But at the end of the day, the fact that he's claiming that secularism has all these values, look at the way these values have been demonstrated throughout this conversation right now. Freak out of here, man.
All right. Dooby, I don't know. It sounded like you wrapped things up previously, but like, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I mean, again, if what you're saying is that there are positives that come with religion, I agree. I don't think you've given any example where these positive effects couldn't come from secular means, and I've given you many negatives, this baggage that comes with your cult, right? That comes with all these other cults, right? Not just your cult. Islam has lots of baggage. Buddhism has lots of baggage. Pagan religions have lots of baggage. These religions come with baggage, right? And if the only thing that we're gaining from these things is like, hey, people are willing to give more, maybe people are nicer to their neighbors because they're taught, in Sundays services that they're meant to be nice to the neighbor, whatever the fuck. There's no reason this can't be taught from a secular position without the baggage, right? Without the anti-gay shit, without the anti-woman shit that happens in this country. And again, if you this thing, it just seems like you're putting lipstick on a pig, right? Saying, hey, look, Christians give more. Hey, look, I've been nice in this conversation, right? So therefore, you should support the continuation of my cult. When your cult, this thing that you're encouraging people to support the continuation of, this thing that you're encouraging people to support getting like tax exemption, is part of a group of other cults, right? That aren't as nice as your cult, that are sending missionaries all over this fucking planet, that are destroying cultures, that are teaching people that gay people are abominations, that are pushing for the oppression of women in other countries, just like they're in our country. But in those countries, because they've been fucking devastated by colonialism that was backed by religion, right? These countries don't have the wealth, don't have the education, don't have the protections for rights that these Christians would attempt to strip away from gay people, from women, right? So it just seems like you're attempting to hyper focus on the United States because we're a country that's already fought these battles with religion. And I think if you pull back just a little bit, right, we'll see that religion overall on this planet is a force for evil, I'd say. And we gain nothing by continuing it. We gain nothing by pretending that priests are somehow morally better than anybody. The Buddhist monks are like learned individuals because they've devoted themselves to a fucking cult, right? I think we'd be much better off encouraging people to do good because it's good. To help people, right? Because you should help your neighbor. Because if you see a poor guy on the corner, you should go and help him if you can. You should give to organizations that'll get him off the street because your community is better when he's not suffering, and because your community is better, you're better off if he's not suffering, right? So I don't know. I think again, it just seems like the equation here is religion has positives and negatives. My preferred system is lots of positives, without the bigotry, without the indoctrination, without the fucking mutilation to satisfy some pact with the god, and without the stripping of rights. We should do that instead, right? We should take the positives without the negatives. We should encourage people to think empirically, without any magical thinking, without any a god on their shoulder, or demon under their bed. And it just seems like we're much better off doing that. I just don't understand how you could say it. So again, I do think you're an intelligent person. I don't understand. Oh, I do understand. I think this is just like, you've got a lot of personal experiences, and that's kind of, it's difficult for you to let that go. And I can understand that. I'm not faulting you for maybe you feel like you've experienced some miracles. You feel like this religion has been a positive thing in your life. But I think, and that's great for you, right? But there are plenty of people on this planet who are being dealt a shit hand because of your religion, because of other cults that are like different versions of your religion, right? And I just don't think we should encourage people to continue propagating these things.